So, Felix, let's examine the theories that explain aggression. How do you explain how all of this aggression occurs during sporting performance? Are there any explanations for this aggression?
Yes, there are four main theories that attempt to explain aggression and how it occurs. Firstly, the instinct theory. The instinct theory was initially researched by Freud in 1920, however it was later adapted by Lorenz in 1996. The instinct theory suggests that there are innate or genetic drives to be sexual and aggressive due to survival. The psychodynamic approach states that there is a trait of violence that is within everybody's DNA, known as the id. Therefore, in sports it can be seen as an inevitability for athletes to have aggression built up over time. In the instinct theory, displacement occurs, which is when the id is acted upon, however is taken out on something other than harming someone, such as playing sport, like hitting a punch bag, or breaking someone's belongings. Sport, therefore, can be a displacement of aggression. The instinct theory also includes sublimation. This is when the ids are acted upon. However, they are acted upon in a way that is socially acceptable, for example playing a sport that is creative and requires skill in art or finesse. In the instinct theory, it starts with a build-up of aggression, then the most important, whereby a performer can go one of either two ways. If the performer ends up acting aggressive, it goes from a build-up of aggression to attacking someone, then this behavior is seen as socially unacceptable, and therefore aggression. On the other hand, it can lead from a build-up of aggression to then displacing and releasing the aggression, which is socially acceptable, and then there is catharsis, which means releasing strong suppressed emotion. Although there are many criticisms that can be made of the instinct theory, such as Berkowitz in 1972, who stated that levels of aggression increase during sport, not decrease, which is what Freud suggested. Another criticism made was that there are no innate characteristics of aggression that have been found, and catharsis has no support either. Therefore, this would suggest that the instinct theory is not a valid explanation for aggression at all. A third evaluation point is that aggressive players during sport do not show the same level of aggression in everyday life out of the sport. Also, aggressive cultures can be shown to be learned, and therefore it may not be innate, which is what the instinct theory suggests. Another explanation for aggression is the social learning theory. The social learning theory made by Bandura in 1996 suggests that all behavior is learned through social experiences and situations. It states that the social learning theory is nurtured through environmental factors and is observed by significant others and can be reinforced. The social learning theory states that aggression can become an accepted mode of behavior if it is reinforced. This means that, for example, if aggression is part of the culture or family, then it is much more likely that aggressive behavior will occur more often. In sporting examples, this can be shown in football teams. When a player is aggressive, who is seen as a role model throughout the team, this can lead to more aggressive behaviors from others who look up to them through the social learning theory. For example, in the 2010 World Cup, Nigel de Jong may have observed that before he made the dangerous tackle, there were other challenges being made that were dangerous in the game, but the ref was not punishing them as he should have been, and because of this, Nigel de Jong maybe learnt that aggressive behaviour was almost accepted, which could have been a reason why he performed the aggressive tackle. There are criticisms of the social learning theory, such as that people do not always copy what they see. For example, if a player sees their role model being aggressive, it does not always mean that they will go out themselves and be aggressive. Another criticism that is made is that people can copy good behavior as well as bad behavior. Also, if they see that the reaction to the behavior shown is poor, then there is less chance of the performer copying that behavior due to free will. For example, in the 2010 final, if the referee is giving out more penalties and poor reaction, such as giving out a yellow card or a red for poor challenges, it would mean that players are less likely to be aggressive. There is also related literature to the social learning theory, such as Conroy et al. In 2001, who found that athletes participating in non-contact sports didn't perceive acts of aggression to be tolerable in the same way that individuals who participated in sports did. Third explanation for aggression is the frustration-aggression theory. The frustration-aggression theory by Dollard et al. In 1939 states that aggression occurs because frustration arises due to a goal blockage. This theory then states that every time a player becomes frustrated, it will always lead to aggression. So to start, a performer may be motivated towards a goal, which then becomes blocked, and the performer will then be frustrated, and thus aggression will occur as a result of the frustration, as frustration always leads to aggression in this theory. If the aggressive behaviour that is acted out by the performer is not punished or criticised, then this leads to a cathartic response. However, if the act of aggression is punished, this leads to more frustration and therefore more aggression. On the other hand, there are criticisms to the theory, such as that there is little support to suggest that frustration will always lead to aggression, which is what the theory is based upon, thus the validity would be decreased. Another criticism is that the theory doesn't account for the use of coping strategies to deal with the feelings of frustration. For example, some professional athletes can suppress their frustration or channel it to improving their performance. The theory also doesn't account for aggression being learnt. The final explanation of aggression is the aggression cue hypothesis, which according to Berkowitz in 1969 is built upon the frustration-aggression theory. This theory argues that frustration does not lead to aggressive behaviour, but instead frustration proposes a readiness for aggressive behaviour to take place. This means that the frustration does not always lead to aggression, as the frustration-aggression theory implies. The aggression cue hypothesis states that frustration leads to an increase in arousal levels, and that the theory states that a readiness of aggression created by frustration only leads to aggression if there is an environmental cue for the aggressive behaviour to be carried out. For example, in a football game, if a player becomes frustrated due to a decision going the incorrect way, it will not lead to aggression straight away, but it will ready the performer to be aggressive, and if a stimulus occurs, such as a player fouling them again and the ref not seeing it, this may lead to aggression.
What are the reasons for coaches to be able to understand their players and their aggression?
Coach application towards knowing and having a good understanding of their players is positive, knowing what stimuli that leads to aggressive behaviours in their players. A reason that a coach should understand their players and their associated aggression factors is that they will know events with aggressive meaning or rivalry and equipment that is related to aggression. If a coach finds that a football team is playing a rival, they will understand who is the most aggressive and be wary of how long in the game they will play for. Another reason is knowing players with higher levels of arousal or anger. If the coach knows and understands who is more aroused or is more likely to be aggressive when they play, then they may be able to suppress their aggression or decrease their arousal by changing their positions or substituting them during a game.
Are there any strategies to eliminate aggression so that performers like Nigel de Jong do not act so aggressively?
A strategy that could help to reduce aggression for players is performing mental rehearsal and imagery. Players who perform mental rehearsal and imagery can help to reduce aggression because it can give them feelings of relaxation and reduce their levels of aggression, as they may picture something like visualizing a positive outcome. There are also other strategies that players can do to reduce their level of aggression, such as positive self-talk, where players will say positive words to encourage themselves and attempt to reduce their levels of aggression. Players can also count to 10 and also distance themselves from aggressive behaviour, and also harsher penalties can be given out to players, which can give them cards or fines, which is another strategy that will help to reduce their aggression. There are strategies for coaches to reduce aggression, such as giving the aggressor the role of responsibility. This will help to reduce aggressive behaviour, as they feel like they are more responsible. Also, coaches can emphasise non-aggressive role models as exemplary behaviour. This would mean that people who are aggressive realise that to be rewarded they should not act aggressively, and thus their behaviour may change. Coaches can also punish aggressive behaviour, which will reduce the chance of the behaviour occurring again. The coaches can also provide progressive relaxation techniques, which can help to calm performers down in times of frustration, and therefore lowering behaviours of aggression. The coach should also appraise non-aggressive behaviour, which will increase the chances of better behaviour rather than aggressive behaviour. There are also others in sport that use strategies to reduce chances of aggressive behaviour occurring. For example, officials apply rules which are strict and consistent and may include harsher penalties like laws, bans or fines on players. This is an effective strategy because if a player is fined for producing behaviour that is aggressive, such as punching an opponent, but if they are punished, they are less likely to repeat the actions, and others are also less likely to do it, as they have seen the consequence. If there is less aggression, then the social learning theory will take place, and correct behaviour will be learnt, and then less aggression. There can also be other strategies done, such as limiting alcohol and drugs, which can lead to aggression, like steroids. Also, strategies like separating aggressive fans can reduce aggression because there's less chance of a cue occurring to cause the aggression.
Thanks very much there, Felix. That was a really interesting summary of your thoughts and theories around aggression. Thank you for coming today.